There's no sound. We have no sound.
There's no sound. Yeah.
Sangye Drumpa Shok, Sangye Chadang Soke Tongnam La, Janchu Baru Dagni Kyap Suchi, Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonan Ki, Jola Penche Sangye Drumpa Shok. Can you hear me now, Eileen? Good, darling. Okay, good. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay, people. So I said before, in many ways it's similar. The things you're going to hear is similar. The words are similar, but what are the differences? And that's probably the crucial point, isn't it? It's interesting to know, So of course, when we talk in the modern world, when we say the word mind, we point to our brain, we point to something physical. So if we have problems with our minds or people do wacky, weird things, we don't often worry about looking at the mind when people do good things. Because they do wacky things and we start, unpacking, we sort of dig up the brain and have a look at it. I remember 30 years ago, remember those Columbine kids? I think it was 30 years ago, plus now. I remember reading in the New York Times interview with the mother of one of those boys and the suffering and trauma she suffered, because of what her boy did. And of course, I remember that time, I remember somebody told me that they knew the people who worked in the Justice Department. So what they did in that state, Colorado, wasn't it, or something? And they dug up their brains, because trying to find why, So in our world, that's what we do, because we assume that naturally we do get a brain from our parents. So we assume that our goodness and badness comes from our parents, because we assume our goodness and badness are there in the brain. That's our view, isn't it? So Buddha has a different view. So also do Christians. Christians talk about having a soul that comes from God, the different analyses in the world. So the radical difference with the materialist one and the Buddhist one is that our mind isn't our brain. It sounds silly initially. Doesn't mean the brain doesn't play a role. I always like to say it this way, that what goes on in the brain really is, yes, a physical indicator of what's happening in your mind. And so the mind of the Buddha is referring to your thoughts, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious, same. But he's not referring to the physical thing. He says consciousness is not physical. Of course, that's not immediately evident. It's not immediately provable either. You can't prove that. So you've got to listen to this as our hypothesis. All this information we're discussing here is coming from this person called the Buddha, not from on high, not revelation, not speculation. It's coming from his experience. He's not asking us to believe a single word he says. He says, this is my experience. This is what I've found. Here's my methodology. This is the result. Over to you to investigate. That's the Buddhist approach. So the crucial piece here, that I think makes a radical difference in the approach to working with your mind. The tendency would be, isn't it, in our culture, that if your brain comes from your parents, and it does, and you think your brain is your mind, and you end up doing psychotic, wacky things, then of course, you've got to blame somebody. You blame your parents. They made you. It's a very interesting concept, and we do it very strongly. We have that view automatically. The sense that somehow someone else made me and put me on this earth, therefore they're the cause, which is a reasonable logic. It makes sense, actually. But for the Buddha, this is not the way his approach at all. Yeah, your parents give you a brain. Yes, your parents give you a body. But your mind, and that's his radical difference, and nor do you come from a superior being. That's the other one that we tend to think of as religious philosophy. There's a materialist philosophy and religious philosophy, and we tend to think religious philosophy only includes any philosophy that includes a creator. Well, there's no view like that in Buddhism. It's quite different. There's no concept of a creator. So out of interest, it's helpful to know these things. So I think the experiential implication of these points I found very powerful. I know when I first heard all these teachings and had this idea, got this idea that this mind of mine doesn't come from a God or a creator or a being called God, doesn't come from mummy and daddy, but comes from myself. In other words, my mind is a continuity of mental moments that come before this birth and continue after. That's a radically different view. I mean, it's shockingly different. I mean, the Christian teachings and the materialist teachings both at least share one concept, that I began in the womb. Of course, this package called Robina began, but not the continuity of my consciousness. That's the biggest difference. So that's the hypothesis that we're using this You know, it's the basis of this discussion in this room. You know? But even without that, you can still see there's a lot of benefit from this view. Because the key point the Buddha makes about the mind is we're not set in stone. It's a really great concept we have. We're not set in stone. Or as Lama Zopa puts it, we can mold our mind in any shape we like. But I think we don't, when it comes to emotions, I do not think we believe that for 1 second. We really do believe we are set in stone. Look at this despair and hopelessness we get, the suffering we have. I think it's based on this assumption that this is who I am, I'm stuck with it, you know. I mean, we know if you break your leg, it's a bit depressing and having a drag, but you can look forward to the future when it'll mend. We know it changes. We know it's not set in stone that your leg is now broken forever, general points. But when it comes to our mind and depression and anger and then bad things happening, we really do not see any light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, why do we think we kill each other and ourselves so frequently? Because we just are despairing, can't see any end to it. We believe otherwise, using Buddhist terminology, we believe it's permanent, unchanging, set in stone. No wonder we despair. So the Buddhist approach to the mind is, well, first it doesn't come from mummy and daddy or a creator. It's a big shock. You know, it's the continuity of mental moments, and this law of karma is the law that runs this mind. As the Dalai Lama says, karma is like self-creation. Everything I think and basically this is the Buddhist point. Everything I think and do and say is the process of producing me, and the key player is the mind. The body and speech are just the servants of the mind. They carry out the job of the mind, of the thoughts, you know. So this idea that your mind comes from before, it's got its own continuity, and you come into this life programmed with what you are now seeing in your mind, doesn't come from out there. That's a radically different view. And for me, I found from the very beginning, and I find still being a Buddhist, because this view suits me, this is pretty powerful. The implication of this is that whatever's in here is mine. I put it there. So of course you've got to hypothesize the idea of continuity of consciousness. It's not too difficult. We're very intelligent. We can do that. Whether we like it or not, that's another discussion. All the Buddhist teachings are based on this idea, and it's coming from the Buddha's experience, you know, his own observation. So I can change what's in here. I like that. I think that's great. So, you know, of course, as we talk often, the Buddha's view of the Buddha's analysis of the contents of the mind is quite different. We all know the words anger, love, depression, anxiety, despair. We know them intimately. It's like second nature. But the Buddha would just divide these into 2 categories. Those that are neurotic, I-based, fear-based, distressing, disturbing, anger, attachment, jealousy, low self-esteem, arrogance, anxiety. We know them intimately. They're not nice. We know that. Then the nice ones. Love, compassion, kindness. We can see already, we know this automatically, that they're different. We can see we've got both. But I think in our culture, we tend to assume that all of these are kind of natural part. We give them equal status as being natural parts of a normal person, meaning, you know, we'd rather have more of the good, and if you try your best, you can do that, and we'd rather not have the rubbish. But we tend to think that a normal person has to have all of these to be a normal person. There's no view that says you can get rid of one lot, you know, utterly, which is exactly what Buddha is saying, and then develop to incredible degrees the other lot, which is what Buddha is saying. That's a shock to us. You know, you go, I mean, it sounds like you'd be mentally ill. And when you read the teachings about the experiences of these highly evolved spiritual practitioners who are doing this job, you hear the qualities that they would have. It doesn't sound right to us psychologically. To think that a person can go beyond all anger, all attachment, all jealousy, all depression doesn't sound human. So it's quite shocking to hear this. This is the Buddha's view. So I find it very encouraging to know that's a possibility. Wow, who doesn't want to get rid of attachment? Who doesn't want to get rid of depression and anxiety and despair? and to have a method that maybe you've looked into that you think that is the result of practice, then it's kind of encouraging. Couldn't also overnight, it's not magic. So in that sense, it's a radically different view. And it's quite shocking to think that that's possible. We can't get our head around how that could be possible. We can't imagine a person who has not a fraction of anger or jealousy or despair or anxiety. They literally don't sound human to us. You know? So it's kind of interesting. This is the very basis of Buddhist practice. That word nirvana. You've accomplished that when you've done this to your mind, when you've done the work of ridding it of the rubbish, you know. You've achieved the cessation of suffering, that's what they call. And the consequence of that is your mind is joyful, radiant, clear, wise, compassionate. It's a very surprising idea. I think it's delicious. Who doesn't want that? So that's true. We're better learn to identify, isn't it? The difference. And that's the essence of Buddhist practice, really. Putting it really simply, this is the essence of Buddhist practice. Learning to identify the difference. Learning to distinguish between the neurotic and unhappy, disturbing ones and the nice, positive, useful ones. That really is the job. And that takes time. That's because these states of mind go to incredibly subtle degrees, you know. That's the job of being a Buddhist, basically. The reason you want to do a thing called meditation, the reason you do any practice is to help that happen. That's the bottom line. So then, of course, I suppose the first step is to not just take it for granted. Oh, that's nice, I'll get rid of anger. Look at what it is and try and identify whether you think it's worthwhile to get rid of it. In other words, does it cause you suffering or does it cause you happiness? Because actually you think about it, and there's another approach coming from the Buddhist view of the world, the Buddhist analysis of the mind. We all want happiness, we all don't want suffering. So if we think about it, what alternative is there? Is there a third state we prefer to have or not prefer? I think really it covers everything, happiness and suffering. There are experiences we don't like that are awful. There are states of mind we don't like that are awful. That's called suffering. There are experiences we do like, the states of mind that we do like, do feel, they cause happy feelings. That's it, suffering, happiness. There's degrees, of course. So in a way, it's very simple, surprisingly. And one of the biggest problems if we take these words in our modern view and the way we feel about these words, and this is where Buddha would analyze and say we're up a creek without a paddle. We have a misconception of what happiness is, and we have a misconception of what suffering is. In the sense that he says they all come from here. Their source is in here. Whereas we feel instinctively, without being told, dogs and monkeys are the same, that it all comes from out there. And of course, therefore, if we believe it's out there, we have to pursue the things that we think are what will trigger happiness for me and avoid, if we can, the ugly things. That's how we spend our lives, isn't it? And there's some truth in it, but it's not the whole truth of the Buddha. It's not a clear enough analysis, he says. But essentially his view is that we have this potential to be free of suffering and its causes. That's nirvana. Not a place, state of mind. That's the result of this method, you know. For yourself, that one. And the other result is that on the basis of this, you can then be of benefit to others. That's the bodhisattva path. That's the compassion wing. Bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. So you can't do the compassion wing, which is more advanced, until you've done the first one. You've got to work on yourself first. Then to that degree, you can be useful to others. But to try and get some confidence is necessary. Don't just do it and blindly believe it. This is foolishness. You've got to get some confidence in these methods. Try and establish ourselves the truth that anger itself, depression itself, anxiety itself, jealousy itself, they're the source of the suffering. Yes, boyfriend punches me in the nose. Yes, someone stole your money. No argument. Buddha's saying, shockingly enough, they're not the main source. They're like the catalyst. Okay, he's even got explanations for why they happen in the first place. That's karma. Forget that one. Forget that one. Forget that one. That's why, you know, I always use this example of my friend Sunny, this woman in prison. I use her such a common example that she had no particular spiritual path. She never talked about karma. She didn't have a view of a creator, that she was in a cell 17 years, innocent of having killed 2 policemen, was on death row. She just realized that the despair, the rage, the grief, the loss, the anger was like a nightmare. And she said, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything, but they couldn't take my mind from me. So she started to change her mind. It sounds so shocking, almost too simple for words, but intense. It's like astonishing to come to this yourself. Everyone on the planet, if you're wrongly accused of something, we absolutely would say, of course I'm angry and despairing. Look what they have done to me. And then that's what we sit. We can't think of any option. Most of the world is like that. Most of us are like that. So to think that Sunny could do this, you know, I always use her such as an example. She's not a Buddhist, she's not a Christian, she was a Jewish girl, but she wasn't practicing a religion or anything. She had, in other words, I'd put it, that she had this astonishing intelligence that enabled her to see that she couldn't indeed change the external. She eventually did get out, interestingly, you know, but she knew she could change her mind. Meaning, she's identifying that what was in her mind was the source of her pain, and that she could change it. She'd still rather be out of the prison. Thank you. She got out eventually. So that's pretty incredible. I never stop using her as an example because she's the most outrageous, stark example of this approach that we're describing. When you can see that someone's done it, not by being a Buddhist or a Christian or anything else, which means, of course, the Buddhist view is it's actually practical, natural law. This is natural stuff. And we can all do it if we can see it. Don't have to believe in it, you know. It's natural law. It's very astonishing. I find it never always blows my mind, this woman. So try and prove that to ourselves is pretty incredible. Doesn't mean you can't change the outside world. If she could, if she would have. And she eventually did. Because she kept her sanity and her reasonableness. She was able to continue to work on her freedom and got it eventually. So this is not saying that the outside world doesn't play a role. Not like that. Not like saying that at all. Not like that. It's saying the mind is more powerful, that's surprising enough. That's shocking enough. So to discover that for ourselves, and I think we can prove it every day. You know very well, you wake up one morning, you're feeling quite relaxed, and your sister's mean to you, and there's water off a duck's back. You're feeling miserable the next day, she says a mean word to you, and you want to kill her. So what's the difference? You're feeling better one day, you're not feeling better another day. Her being mean is the same. Proof is right there. We know it all the time, but we don't join the dots. You know, we don't join the dots. We don't get this mind-blowing revelation from that, which is what we should do. Wow, you mean I can change my mind and I can be sure that I can be happy every day and not miserable? It's up to me. And that's exactly what Buddha's saying. Whereas if we believe from the depths of our bones that my happy feelings have to be triggered by a nice thing happening, then of course when we don't have a nice thing happening, we're living in despair, aren't we? That's how we all are. Look at the world, you know. It's hard work, of course. It's easier to get your sister to be nice to you than to have to find a way to interpret her meanness and not be offended by it. Much easier. It's easy to be happy when someone's nice to you. It's easy to be happy when you're not in prison. It's easy to, actually theoretically, but I guarantee you Sunny was more happy in her nightmare than many people who've got the best husband, children, family, money in the bank, health, etc., tick all the boxes. We can see people are despairing and kill themselves with all of that. So we can really, again, prove that the external world is not the main cause of suffering or happiness. It's easy to prove it. There's proof right there. So it should give us courage. It's just that it's hard work. It's very hard work. Because the instinct of ego is wants the easy way out, you know. I mean, my simple example at the moment, I've got my downstairs neighbor in the house that I live in, the apartment I live in, that downstairs neighbor, like she's got, so you can tell she's got this air conditioning. It's about 40 years old, so it makes this gigantic sound. And I've been to a friend recently and I could not believe the noise their AC machine made. When I've got this new AC, it wasn't that much, only $300 something, it was just totally silent. Maybe because you've got it there and it's been there 40 years, you don't think to change it. Do you understand? So my downstairs neighbor, my floor vibrates, my desk vibrates, and I can hear this sound, you know. I mean, I have all these fantasies about buying her a new AC, sending her, but she doesn't like me much because I upset her when I first arrived because she started banging the broom on the floor, on the ceiling, you know, because I didn't know you're supposed to walk softly in apartments. I don't know, the floors are thin. So she began by, she came up to my door in our first few days. I never a place to live in my whole life. I just traveled around, lived in other people's places. Suddenly a new place. I got this neighbor, you know, I'll never forget. She came to my door with her nurse. She's old and she's got a walker. And she was screaming at me. I was so shocked. I had to do like this. I kept saying sorry, you know. I didn't know what I'd done. Now she's calmed down after a year, but now I've got her thing. So I'm giving you a simple example. I can't change it, you know. I can't, I mean, I could go and buy her a new AC, but that doesn't mean she's going to accept my AC. You're right, you understand? It's such a tiny example. So it's such hard work to work on my mind. And because I don't want to build up, you know, I don't want to have to build up this approach where, because in certain parts of my house, must be where the pillars are, because you can't hear it in some places, but I move 1 inch to the left and then it's booming again. Do you understand what I'm saying? So to start getting upset and then having this annoyance arise, what's it going to do to me? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's so clear. Not being in a prison cell, forget that. So I have, for my sake, this is the point about this. This is the thing that Sunny meant. It's not a moralistic issue. Do I want to feel happy or do I not? I would rather feel happy, please. So I've got to work really hard in my mind to walk about in my own apartment. And then when I come to the point where the thing's booming and I go to my desk and it's slightly vibrating, instead of immediate aversion, you understand, immediate annoyance, because who is it harming except me? This is the thing we find really hard to see. We think, but I'm allowed to be annoyed. Look what it's doing. As if somehow you're allowed to be annoyed because she's, I mean, you know, we don't realize it's hurting ourselves. That's the thing that's so simple. So for my benefit, I have no choice but to learn to find a way to like this sound. Do you see my point? Do you see my point? It's so clear, but it's so infuriating, you know, because we don't want to do it. Then you find a reason to think it was her fault and she this and she that and then sue her. You see it with my neighbors, you know, the things that people do as neighbors. Oh my God. This is such a tiny, I mean, you're not on death row for 17 years, wrongly accused of killing 2 policemen. Excuse me. It's the tiniest thing that every one of us in this room can know about, isn't it? We all have examples like this, right? So it's not an easy practice, I swear. This is intense. It's intense. Well, that's enough for the class. I think I could go home now and just have to meditate on this. Right there is the proof, right there. You know? So the thing, I suppose, to see, the thing that's hard to see is what it does to ourselves. That's, I think, the part. Because we're so caught up in the entitlement to be this way and then to blame a person. And therefore feel, there's nothing, what do you mean? What do you mean I should change my mind? She's the one who should change, is what we tend to say, isn't it? So this is the part that makes it so difficult for us. We build up this resistance to the idea even that I could change my mind. It's sort of like letting her get away with it, isn't it? Do you understand? Well, if I change my mind and I become happy, but she's getting away with it. All of this, I think, is a story in our heads. And there's layers of these stories. And this is why it's so hard. It sounds so easy to say, oh, change your mind, Robina, be happy. But there's layers and layers of arguments in our head. Do you see what I'm saying, people? Every one of you, I guarantee, knows what I'm talking about. Because every day we have examples like this. So don't wait till you go to death row, please, and be wrongly accused of murdering 2 policemen. As well as, when she was there, at least her 2 children, I think 3 or 2 children, at least she felt okay about her kids because they were given to her family, her parents. And their parents got killed in a car accident, so she lost her kids to the state. Then, after many years and the appeals, her husband, who was in prison too, was executed. And she went to the execution. And his head burst into flames. I mean, you can't imagine a nightmare, one after nightmare after another, you understand? And then she says, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything. I can't get over her. I never can get over her as an example, because extreme examples always are so intense, you know. All I'm getting at is, philosophically speaking, psychologically speaking, this is the approach that the Buddha from 2,500 years ago is taking. And it's not as if this is the point about it, it's not as if he's invented this idea. He didn't create this idea and copyright it and then tell you you've got to believe in it. No, it's not like that. Lots of intelligent people can see this. All spiritual paths have this approach to one degree or another. Just that we're talking the Buddha's approach here, that's all. And here, I'm not discussing, you see, the other thing, when we think about being patient, we think it's this kind of holy state of mind, you know. No, it's practical psychology. We are the beneficiary of this. Forget even any ability to be of any benefit to other people. This is the method. This is, from the Buddhist perspective, the method for myself to become more content and fulfilled. It's called giving up attachment. It's called giving up anger. It's called giving up depression, anxiety, because those states of mind are all the names, the variation of these stories in our head. You know? That's the way to say it, really. So we are the beneficiary, but it's impossible to hear it. We can't hear it. We think, I'll get happy when she gets a damn new air conditioning and stops annoying me. We spend our lives doing this. And then the trouble is, then she gets that, and then she's going to have another thing. Then the next door neighbor across the other side will do something. You know, you can never get it. And this is the one between neighbors. So I started to look up what you can do to the floor. You know, so then you've got these endless chat rooms all over the world about what people paying for, suing each other and going crazy and having to sell their apartment and move because of noises between apartments. I mean, everybody on the planet. You know, are we communicating? Yes. No. I'm sure we all are. So boring sounding. It's not holy, I promise you. But the thing to see is it's not moralistic. It's not as if, what do you mean I shouldn't be angry? Not a question of that. You want to be happy, Robina? You want to have, that means have happy thoughts. That means have content thoughts. That means not have annoyed thoughts. So we've all got them. You can't make them go away overnight, but you've got to start with the recognition that yes, they're painful. And then you start the practice of changing them. It's not going to happen overnight. But you've got to see first the benefit to oneself. This is not holy. It's not to do with compassion to other people. This is Buddha's method for how to get happy. It's literally that. It's intense hard work every second. But like anything, like we would say in our culture, practice makes perfect, but the Tibetans have a lovely way of saying it. They say nothing ever gets more difficult with practice. I like that better. Isn't it nice? So soft, so humble. So you've got to, you know, go on and have you're in for the long haul. So it's not going to be overnight, you know. It just gets easier. You've got to catch it. And that's also a massive problem in our culture, because we don't notice what's happening in here until it's explosive and emotional and the body is feeling it and it vomits out the mouth. That's the worst problem for us in our culture. We wait till it's too late. So we've got to start. This is why practical practice every day, you know, starting with a little practice of concentration, of mindfulness practice, to get you into the habit. Training to pay attention. Use the breath is a good example. To anchor your mind to the breath, just pay attention to the breath. Nothing special about the breath. It's just to help us not just float around mindlessly in our head 24 hours a day. Begin to develop control. Begin to develop awareness. Begin to develop a skill such when we get off our cushion and go to the kitchen that you start to pay attention to what's happening in here in the stories, you know. When I come out of my room and I go through the hallway, and then at a certain point in the hall, I can hear the zooming, the booming, you know, or feel it. I move further, I get to the kitchen, and I can't. So then I even notice in the room where I do my practice, you know, I'm sitting in my chair there on the floor, I can feel the vibration, you know. So then if I move one foot to this side, I don't feel the vibration. So always wanting to move to the nice side, because that builds up this tension in your mind. They say when you're really spiritually advanced, really developed in the way that we're describing, you won't be stupid. If you start kind of falling down and breaking your leg, it's not as if you're not going to feel some pain. You're trying to avoid breaking your leg. But you basically your mind won't change much whether your leg is broken or not. That sounds insane to us. And that's where, for example, like Lama Zopa, the spiritual director of the center who passed away last year, and they asked me to write the eulogy, which I did, the obituary, and really looking into his life. He's a perfect example of this. And not only not changing the mind when bad things happen, learning to find the way to be always content and fulfilled, but even to be more content and even have more compassion, develop as a result of your own suffering, helping that, energizing your own incredible compassion for others, which is a more advanced level, even more advanced. And that to me was like mind-boggling when I'd listen to stories about his behavior and, understand. That's incredible. That's advanced. But the first step is learn to see what goes on in my mind is the main source of my happiness and my suffering. This is incredible. But you have to see it first, acknowledge it, agree with it, not believe in it, agree with it. No one's saying I should, but for my benefit. And then do the work. That's it. That's full time. Forget being kind to others. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Any questions? Up on Zoom there, anybody got something to say? Questions?
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So thank you. So when you're talking about your neighbor and the air conditioner and how it's
Yeah,
served you
yeah,
and how you need to change your mind.
Yeah, for my sake.
So could you give us an example, kind of walk us through how one would
Yeah, you have to notice, we call it, we talk about anger. And when we think of anger, we think of loud and volatile, right? Don't we? And then we say the word annoyed or frustrated or irritated. We don't think they're a problem, really. Do you understand? But they're just words for mild anger. Anger is aversion, attachment. So if something's there, like the delicious cake, you have attachment, it draws you to it and you're excited, right? Aversion is the exact opposite. So when I'm in the quiet spot in my house, my attachment's getting what it wants. So I'm relaxed. But the second I go to the seat in the chair there and the vibration comes, or she turns it up a notch, what do you think is happening in my mind? It's called irritation, which means I'm saying, oh, we should turn our air conditioning down. Oh, there it is again. That's called aversion. That's called anger, Sheila.
Yes.
And wait, stop. I'm answering your question. And it's a thought, isn't it? Well, guess what? You can change your thought. You can call it, you can say, that's okay, I can't change her, so I'll learn to hear it as a nice sound. I'll not have resistance to the sound. I'll welcome the sound instead of having aversion to it. That's what you try to do. Do you see my point? You change your interpretation of it. And who is the beneficiary? It takes time. It takes time to you don't suddenly feel blissful as soon as you change your thought. You've got to practice it. Do you understand? You've got to practice it. But before you know it, I'll be walking through my house and I won't have this radical difference now between the quiet spots and the unquiet spots. I'll be the same because my mind is more. In fact, I won't even notice the sound when you really practice this. Do you see what I'm saying? You've got to catch it first. And what happens, we let it build up, and then you explode. You go knock on a door and scream at her. Then it's a bit late. Do you see my point? You've got to catch our mind every second. So if you're doing this analysis the way Buddha's talking, Western psychology even says there's 1,000 thoughts a second. Buddha would agree. But these ones, attachment is a nice, when things, it's kind of coming from the inside. Attachment is the wanting to be nice. And then when it gets it, there's a pleasant feeling, right? We want those. Then as soon as you taste the coffee that's not the right taste, annoyance comes. As soon as you stub your toe, annoyance comes. As soon as a noise comes down, as soon as something outside, as soon as there's a siren, as soon as all these things that attachment doesn't like, annoyance arises. And we don't pay attention because they're minor. Grab them then. Change the story. And when you get to death row, you're ready for it. Do you understand? You've practiced. Do you understand? That's the answer, Sheila. So the key thing is to see that when we only wait till it's emotional, then it's not possible to see that it's coming from a thought. To say that a person raging with anger is having a series of thoughts sounds like a joke to us. But that's all it is, but they built them up until the point they were so explosive. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the answer. Does it answer your question? Or is still something missing?
You know, I'm just thinking of the thought process to change one's mind.
What, dear? What?
The thought process of changing one's mind. So let's say the air conditioning is annoying, to somehow embrace it as a beneficial sound, a pleasant sound.
Well, then you're putting these words onto it, and this is basically what I'm saying. So where's the question? I've just answered it.
So,
But I've answered it. Why aren't you satisfied with the answer? What's missing for you? I understand. What's missing in the answer? What's missing
I
in
just had
the...
to get from A to B.
But I just told you.
Well,
So tell me what you think I said. Come on. Say back to me
Well, I think
the practical advice I gave.
the advice was when something's annoying, you need
No, be it more precise. Something is annoying, meaning you notice in your mind an annoyed thought,
Yes,
which is called aversion.
yes.
You with me?
Yes.
So you got to, the smaller it is, the quicker you catch it, the easier it is. So then you have a thought arising, you know, then what do you do with it? You recognize it's aversion and it's not pleasant, yeah? So you have to then decide, well, can I change it? Can I move that cupboard door so every time I move my head I don't bash myself? If you can, go for it. But what if I can't? And I can't change this woman's air conditioning. I can't. Okay, I could probably spend, I went into all this, I probably could spend quite a few $1,000s and change the entire structure of my floors, pull them all up, all my boards, which are 60 years old, and put in a whole new flooring with air conditioning. Even if I got permission for that, I could do that. Now, I could do that. I could do that. Probably cost me $20,000, which I don't have. So then goodbye to that idea. Do you understand? I could do that, possibly. That's theoretical. Oh, hurt myself. More aversion. Do you see what I'm saying? So given I've decided not to do that, then I don't have a choice except to change my thoughts. We've got to have confidence in it, that it's going to work. But we don't want to think it can possibly. What do you mean think it's a nice sound? It seems like impossible. Because when you've got aversion, it's impossible to think that second that you would like it. You get my point? This is what I noticed as another thing, common one, when people don't like their mums. They always blame their mothers, you know. Many people blame their mothers for their suffering. It's a good example. So a number of friends of mine, Buddhist, who then decided to learn to change, to literally change their interpretation of their mother, to see good qualities. It's exactly the same practice. And before you know it, they adore their mother. Because they're seeing, literally, see, that's the point. Attachment, when it's there, causes the thing to look delicious. When aversion is there, it causes the thing to look ugly. And then we believe in it. Do you understand? So when you talk about your mother, she did this and she did all the long list of things that our mothers did that were indeed probably done. But what that means is it's blinding us from seeing the other qualities that are actually good. We never looked at them. So do this analysis of going through all the qualities of a person like your mum, good quality, she did this for me, she did that. Suddenly you're painting literally a new picture of your mother. So you see a different person. That's the process we're describing. Do you understand? But it takes effort. That's what I'm saying. And it takes time. Not overnight. Not like, oh, now I feel good. No, it's silly. Are we communicating now?
Yes, yes.
Good. I burned myself. I dropped boiling water and I keep knocking it. Now the scab's coming off and I've got a big lump there now. So excuse me being disgustingly personal. Sorry. More dramas, more aversions. Any more? It's exactly the right question. Because we've got to get right down to the details. How do you do it? This is how you do it. But the sooner you catch it, that we say annoyed. We don't even think of it as a thought, but it's a thought. If you wrote it down as, how dare that sound? That is an ugly sound. How dare she do that to me? Why can't you get a new air conditioning? All these suddenly 47 thoughts, all right there. We just call it, oh, annoying, you know. Got to analyze it, hear it quickly, and then change. No, we can change it. And who's the beneficiary? Me. And of course, it's hard when you have, you know, when you have this intensity of suffering that people have. Even as you stub your toe and it's painful, this thing when I burn my hand, you know, that's probably a few days of pain. That's so hard. Just that alone is so hard to change. But the sooner we catch it. And of course, when we go more deep into the practice, this is seeing things as having no inherent nature. This is learning to realize emptiness, Sheila. Do you understand? So it's profound levels. Do you understand? Anybody on Zoom? Yes, yes, sweetheart. Yes, Roxy.
Hi, Venerable. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
darling. Yes.
So my grandma is my best friend. She's 94 and she is starting to have dementia. And in the last 2 months, she has changed
What
really
happened with the first one?
rapidly.
Put the noise down. I can't hear her.
No, it's Roxy, so.
Turn
It's
her
my
up.
side.
Come closer, Roxy. You did you do something?
Here,
I
let
can't
me
hear you. You were
try
nice and
something
loud
else.
before. What happened?
Let's see.
Go on.
Me now.
Oh, you're really silent now. What happened? You were really loud and nice before, but something's happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna work on it.
Sorry, because mine a computer, not yours. Wrong one. Go, go, go. Talk. It's fine. Go, go, go.
Now?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, so my grandma is my best friend. She's 94 and she has very quickly changed. She has dementia, and in the last 2 months, she has really changed. And like I've meditated on impermanence, I've practiced in my mind for losing her. It's just so much harder in the actual.
How has
as
she
it's
changed,
happening.
Roxy? How is she manifesting now?
Her memory is a lot worse.
Okay,
She
she
still
doesn't
knows who
remember
I
you.
am.
Does she remember you?
Yeah,
She still remembers you.
she does.
And she shows love towards you, and you're loving
Yeah.
towards her.
Yeah.
So then what makes you sad then? I'm not trying to be sarcastic. What makes you sad then?
Just seeing how like she isn't able to live in her home anymore, so she's had to move, and it's just all of the things that I've
So
gotten
to
so
see
used
the
to being able to
degeneration of
see
human
her.
beings as we get older, you
Yeah.
mean, it's making you sad. That's pretty
Yeah.
reasonable. Go on then, go on. So then talk to me then.
Yeah, so even though logically I know, of course she's changing, of course she's going to die, of course she's
Sure,
aging, that's
sure.
natural,
That's right.
everybody is.
That's right.
Even though I know it logically, like still I've been feeling so sad about it.
Of course you are. Of
So
course you're sad, darling. You're going to be you are losing your grandmother right in front of you. It's absolutely true, Roxy. So keep going. What are you learning about this, and how can you use this experience to help you in your life? So keep going with your analysis. What else can you do with this?
well, based on what you were just talking about, it's a good opportunity to see emptiness if I can reframe it and see that
Yeah, but another, I
she's
think,
actually.
but in this particular case, is a more simple teaching, Roxy. One of the things with us with death is we don't like just the word death. We can't cope, isn't it? We don't like. So we hear about death. We hear about death in the distant countries. We hear about death in the animals die. We hear about death, and then it gets closer to us. Okay, when we hear about death, it's kind of scary, or we get angry, especially if it's violence. And then it gets a bit closer to us, and it's our dog or our grandmother or our mummy. And then it becomes very real for us. And so the sadness comes, doesn't it? But you've got to go further, Roxy. If you're trying to be a practitioner, which you are, part of this is you're going to recognize its reality. And the only reason intellectually or theoretically that it's making you sad is because there's an assumption in our minds very deep that she shouldn't change, that she shouldn't die. That's the tension there. Why we get sad when people get old and die is because we assume they shouldn't, and then because we're attached to them. So the next level is see it as reality, be loving and kind, but then say to yourself, you know what, Roxy, this is going to happen to me. And then is the practice, then the wake-up call. Then you make a decision, well, I'm not going to waste my life. I'm going to continue to work on myself. I'm going to continue to work on my mind, and I'm going to continue to help others. That's the conclusion, Roxy. The conclusion from how you're saying is only despair and give up and get lost. So that's the real one. This will happen to me. And that completely shifts everything. You face the reality and you be extra loving, extra kind. You do whatever you want to do for her. But then you bring it home to yourself, because we never like to do that. We don't want to know about our death. Then that'll happen to me. So from this, you then go, I'm not going to waste my life. I'm going to make the most. And then you get some buoyancy from that. Do you understand me? That's the big learning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You understand? It really helps. I promise you, it helps. Then you don't waste your life. Then you want to keep practicing, keep benefiting others, keep working on your mind, and you get some purpose from it. Do you understand?
Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for letting me cry in front of you, everybody.
Good. Nothing wrong with crying. What else, people? Anything else? Nothing else. Who was with Paula today? Who's that with you, Paula?
Hello, Venerable Robina.
Who's
I
with
am
you?
here in Polava. Do you remember Paula?
Oh, this is Paula
In
also.
Polava.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Happy to see you,
yeah.
darling. In there initially. There initially. Happy to see you, sweetheart.
Happy to see you.
Good. Good, good, good. Wonderful.
Happy.
You got any questions?
Also happy to see you.
Bit louder.
Yeah. I had a question, and then you started to talk about seeing the good qualities in every person, in a mother. So the first question faded away, and the problem.
Get a bit closer to the
moment
microphone. Paula, a bit closer to the microphone.
Can you see?
A bit closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
stay like that and talk that way, then I can hear you.
Okay.
sweetheart.
Okay. I find it difficult at the moment to see the good quality. You know, I'm working on my father. We
Just a
talked
moment.
about
Stop,
it
stop,
in
stop. Paula, I'm missing. What are you finding difficult at the moment?
to
What
see
is
the good
difficult?
qualities, to see the good qualities, for example, of my father.
Your mother. You're talking about your mother now.
My father.
Your father. So tell me what the problem is in your view of your father. Explain it to me. Explain it to all of us.
I've always had a conflictual relationship with him.
What kind of relationship?
Conflictual.
What?
Conflictual.
Okay, good. Go on. You fought with your father. So he gets angry and you get angry, yeah?
Yeah, and
So how is it
he's,
now?
bossy.
What? Huh?
And now I just keep distance
Why do you keep distance from him?
because I don't want to get angry at him.
How old is your father?
90.
And does he live on his own?
Yes.
And when you
my
see
brother
him,
visits
when you
him.
see him, how does he show his anger?
He's bossy.
Bossy. Okay. Okay. He's bossy. So listen to me, Paula. Do you have
He
confidence?
tells lies. He
Okay,
keeps
so
telling
Paula,
Yeah. Mm.
I think you're a big girl by now. I think you've grown up and you're a big girl and your daddy is old. And I think for you to decide maybe every now and then to speak on the phone and to decide that you will shut your mouth and let him say whatever he wants. One example.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Stop, Paula. You asked me, I'm giving you opinion. How far away does he live from you?
40 minutes.
Okay, so I would think he is getting old, sweetheart. Soon he will die. Your daddy will die. So how about, first of all, you do a little analysis in your own mind, or even write it down on a piece of paper, all the things that your father has done since you were born to facilitate your life. First, he gave the sperm for your body. Then he probably paid money that enabled you to have an education. He then, and in all these years, maybe he's done a few things. So you have to first think of a few good qualities of your daddy. And then you maybe, for his benefit, because you are a big girl now and you have the ability to work on your mind, maybe your daddy doesn't. And then you decide you will go and see him for 1 hour. And you make a decision. I am going to leave my ego at the door and I'm going to see my daddy and I'll say, Daddy, how are you? And you wash his dishes and you clean his floor and you let him say exactly what he wants to say. And then you say, goodbye, Daddy, I'll see you next month. I think you can do that, Paula. What do you think? Possible?
Yes, I will.
That's right. So think of your father now. He'll be dead soon, darling, and then you'll have all these regrets. So I think if he punches you in the nose and wants to kill you, then that's different. Just the fact that he's bossy. Good God, Paula. You're a big girl. You can handle it now, and you have your practice. So for his benefit, and when you are there sweeping his floor and washing his dishes, you can sing a few mantras and put the impression in his mind of the holy beings and bless his mind before he dies, darling. Are we communicating, Paula?
Yes, we are.
You better hurry, because he's going to be dead soon, and then you will regret. All right? That's my advice.
Yes.
Knowing you, I know you're capable. Okay?
Yes. I am.
Good, darling.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else want horrible advice? I mean, if Paola were traumatized and he tries to kill her every day, I wouldn't say that. But he doesn't. He's bossy. God almighty, Paola. He's bossy. What else?
Well, he did many bad things.
Come on, no more. Paola, shut up. Alicine, talk to me, sweetheart.
Yeah, hi, Venerable. Thank you. Again, I'm listening to you every day. And, you know, so we're kind of talking about the older people and dying. I just recently, last week, lost my aunt. She was 86, kind of the matriarch of the family.
Yes.
But what I realized is that I had a huge kind of underlying resentment against her.
That's interesting.
I'm in recovery, so I wrote out my resentments. But what I found very interesting is with the biggest resentment I had against her, it hit me that, you know, she'd tell embarrassing stories at family get-togethers about me when I was a child, you know, just embarrassing me. And she didn't, it was all funny to her. But what hit me was, because I listened to you, is like, you know what, Allison, that's karma. You probably have embarrassed people trying to be funny.
Sure.
That's karma coming back.
There
And
you
it
go.
just changed my view. Is that
Well
the
done.
way of looking at it? And I'm not angry with her anymore because I've done it. So
There you go.
going forward, I need to not do that anymore.
So that's the really big learning. That's the one. That's the essence of it, Alison. It's a very big learning to get, and that's wonderful.
And I have one other question for you, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but the AC thing, could that be the karma that's happening with the lady?
Oh, of course it is. You see, okay, if you take the, okay, good, Alison, thank you. Yeah, of course, that goes without saying. This is the whole point. That I mean, the Buddhist view of karma, which is hard for us to hear, is very different from the materialist world, and it's very different from the Christian teaching, that every tiny thing. First of all, okay, I've got to give more context. The karmic one is one, we have a mind. So everything in my mind is mine, and I put it there, and I came into this life with it. That didn't come from my mummy. That's the first big learning. Then the second learning, which is the discussion we're having here, is that I can change what's in my mind. Okay, that's one whole approach. Now, the other whole approach is the one of karma. Yes, if you have that view, then you know that every tiny thing that is appearing in front of you that is delicious, that's the fruit of your past virtue. And every tiny thing appearing in front of you that is the ugly thing, then you also created that. So that's another whole approach. And it's another analysis to use to help us deal with the drama. There are many approaches to deal with it. So the first one I was using is just the ability to change my mind. But this is another one, equally, just like you did, exactly like you did with your your aunt, exactly like that, same thing. There are many different approaches that can work for our mind to help us deal with it and change. So you're exactly right. Of course you are, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, darling. So what else? Okay, yes, who's that?
Venerable?
Yes, Sunny, go.
So, do you find that monastics have, that being a monastic is a, kind of like, is a supercharged, turbocharged way to change your mind?
You mean living in vows, is what you're saying, not being a monastic. You mean a person living in vows. Is that what you're saying? That's what you mean, isn't it?
I don't know, understand that, because we all live in vows. Anyone who takes
therefore, what's your question mean?
So a monastic sacrifices a lot.
Why? I'm not sacrificing a single damn thing. I'm happy. I'm not sacrificing having a husband and children. I'm glad not to have them. That would cause me to practice more. I mean, I'd be practicing if you gave me a husband. Then I'd really practice.
Okay, so maybe you should be married.
If the plan is to really work on my anger. That might be the best thing. Send me to prison, I'll handle it. That might be the best thing. But meanwhile, excuse me, thank you very much. No, I'm using it in other ways.
So do you think that in general, being a monastic does not make?
I don't know, your question is way too conceptual and too broad. I don't know what you mean by it. You mean the fact that I don't have a husband and children? Is that what you're saying? Is that the condition you're talking about?
No.
Well, which bit are you talking about?
I'm wondering if a monastic has access to-
Sonny.
Oh,
What you keep saying this word monastic, you mean a person living in vows, which includes celibacy, which includes not having babies and children and families.
okay.
That's the one difference between you and me. You don't have babies and families either. So therefore, what are you asking? If that's the case,
Yeah, so
what's
my
your question
is-
mean?
That's the only, living in vows is the only distinction between a monastic and a person, between you and me, or between you and a person who is not living as a monastic? Or do monastics have the ability to?
Sonny, I can't. What do you mean have the ability? It's self-existent because you wear bloody maroon robes, you're able somehow to do better? Excuse me,
Yeah.
monastics can be as idiotic and be more stupid than anybody else. What are you talking about?
No, because if you're.
Sonny, please, really, I'm
Okay.
cutthroat. Sonny, I now have to practice having aversion to Sonny. Excuse me, nutty, demented people can also be a nun. There's a benefit in being a nun in terms of vows for the future result. But in terms of being a better qualified person to be a practitioner at this moment than a person who's in a lay vows, it's a lay person is meaningless. If you put it another way and say there you are with a husband and 7 children and no money in the bank and difficulties and stress and fighting and yelling, is it easier if you're living in a monastery with your own room and your own practice to give up delusions? Then the answer is no question, yes. So you've got to give it more context. Okay,
Okay.
someone else. Anybody else have a question? Yes, Eileen.
Thank you, Robina. I hope this question is in relation to what we're talking about. It's about causes and conditions. I'm trying to understand, and I'd like you to clarify this. There are certain causes and conditions where events happen because of it.
What you're just saying in simple language, what you're saying is
yes.
that every event that occurs is a
Yes.
series of bunches of things coming together, isn't it?
That's right.
So then we know that.
That's right.
Go on,
But the root cause is the law of karma.
No, I want to just keep it very simple, Eileen. We use all these words and they're good Buddhist words,
Yes.
but unless we understand the definition, it's a bit hard. So what are you saying actually?
Well, let's say an event.
Ask in a simple way. What's your question?
Let's say an event happens. It's late at night. It's raining. You're tired. You lost your step and you fell. I'm just making up a.
Okay, so you fell over. So what's the question?
The question is, there are certain causes and conditions that contributed to that event.
Yeah, okay, so very simple. The answer to your question is this. There are external conditions.
Yes.
The boyfriend punches you in the nose. You can't argue that the punch in the nose is a cause of my suffering. You can't argue with that. It's true. But all Buddha's doing is giving a reason why even in the first place, you met him and he punched you in the nose, and that's coming from your past karma. And second, that your mind now, in the way you interpret it, determines whether you're suffering or happy. So that's all. He brings it back to us. The Buddha brings everything back and says, we are our own creator. So karma ripens in 4 ways. 1 is a type of rebirth. 2, within that rebirth, you've got a series of states of mind. You have a series of experiences, even just these 2 alone. So there's the boyfriend, he's an external event, and there's my mind. So one approach is, like we're just discussing here, the lady downstairs is the external event, right? The AC machine is the external event, and on the face of it, that is indeed a cause for my suffering. It's a fact. But if I can notice, so that the main discussion here is, if I can see that I can change my interpretation of it, it will stop my suffering. So that's one approach. And then if you ask the question, well, like this is Alison's point, well, why is it happening in the first place? That's the answer, is the karma. So there's 2 answers. One is the mind and one is karma. In both cases, it's each of us is the cause of the experience and each of us is the cause of what's in the mind. That's what Buddha puts us in charge. Whereas we feel in the West that that it's an unfair event that happens, that shouldn't happen, it's not fair, which is why we all suffer so terribly. We blame the outside. It's not fair. I don't deserve it. Do you understand?
Yes. So the more we live in vows and the more we practice, etc., we're hoping that to create less challenging causes and conditions.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
The whole
That's the whole
point,
point.
right.
So by doing the purification practice every day, by doing a regretting of the actions you've done that, of course, are suffering to you, because you're sick of the suffering, that already changes the experience of having it done to you. Then when you do the compassion one, that changes the environmental result. And then when you do the main practice, the third step, and do the bodhisattva and the practice of the visualization, that changes the lower realm result. And the fourth one, the vow not to do it again, changes the tendency. So there are 4 ways that karma ripens, and the 4 steps in the purification purify each of those. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
All right, good. It's sort of like practical, technical advice. It's not emotional, neurotic. It's a practical, technical approach. We've got to get it right down to that level. You know, do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, darling. Anybody else has a question? No, no, no.
Could you just repeat what you said about the purification and what each?
Sure, yeah. Understand. So the Buddhist approach is that we are the main, as the song says, karma is like self-creation. Okay, so this is the bigger picture view, isn't it? So we've got a consciousness, a mind, a river of mental moments. And one, I come into this life and I go to that particular mother and father. Well, of course, we would think in the West that they made me. There's no me before them, but not for the Buddha. My consciousness comes into that egg and that sperm. No accident, due to a very strong history from past lives with those 2 people. My consciousness, and this was triggered, the karmic seed for that was triggered before I even stopped breathing in the past life, about 7 weeks before that. The karmic seed was triggered. It caused me to find my way to that particular fallopian tube, and it joined with that egg of that mother and that father. I created the cause to go there. 1, human body. 2, within this human body, I'm also got a series of states of mind, and they don't come from mummy and daddy either. They come from my past tendencies. So my getting that human body came from the karma I created, of not killing, in fact. 2, in this body, I've got a mind, and all those states of mind, all the love and the kindness, compassion, the jealousy, the anger, whatever tendency I've got, including being good at football or music or whatever it might be, they didn't come from the outside. They don't come from a creator. They're not random, and they don't come from the parents. They're my tendencies, and they came as a package into this particular body. So far, so good. 3, in this life, we're very social beings, aren't we? We don't live in isolation. We relate to many, many, many sentient beings. I got born to a mother. I have a father. I've got siblings. There are rats and cockroaches in my kitchen. You know, the sister, the auntie, the uncle, the auntie, the one, whatever, the father, whatever. We have karma with many, many people. So all the experiences we have with them, that's called experiences. So 1, the type of body we get due to my past karma. 2, my tendencies, they're my tendencies, my habits that I brought with me. 3, how I'm seen and treated by others, even this one, every Alison's point, you know, and every tiny, and also, you know, whatever, this point here, what's her name? Eileen's point. Everything I meet out there, whoever sees me, whoever listens to me, whatever people do to me, they like me, they love me, they hate me, they kill me, they steal from me, they give me $1 million, all the good experiences, all the bad experiences. Main cause of all of those, my karmic history with those people. The tendencies are the seeds I planted in my mind that will ripen as that experience. All of that, I'm the cause of that. And 4th, even the physical world we live in, we don't all float in the sky. The very way the physical world impacts upon me, that's due to my past karma as well. So we are like our own creators. Sounds hilarious. Get 1, the type of body, 2, the tendencies, 3, the experiences, and 4, the environment. I'm the main cause of every one of those, the main cause. They are the cooperative causes and conditions, as Eileen says, but I created the cause to have them. So I'm the boss. So given that we don't want suffering and do want more happiness, the first level is to practice giving up the causes of future suffering. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, because I don't want those future sufferings. I don't want that to happen to me, and I don't want to keep doing it. So I stop doing them. This is the very first level. Stop causing them. 2, then I purify all the seeds I've planted already in countless past lives to ensure that they don't ripen. So that's what purification is. So 4 steps. First one, regret. It's acknowledging, well, I did kill, I have stolen, I did lie, I did kick the dog. You remember the things you've done in this life, this today, yesterday, this life, and then you can go, and anything I've ever done in the past lives to harm others, I deeply regret. Because you know what, Robina? I don't want the future karmic results from that. I don't want those seeds to ripen. It's my suffering. Thank you very much. It's like compassion for yourself. First step, regret, purifies, and that's called the karma called experiences similar to the cause, the stuff that happens to you. So regretting killing stops the experience of in the future of you being killed. Regretting lying stops the ripening of future being lied to or not being believed. Stopping, stealing purifies the experience in the future of me being stolen from or me being poor. So regret purifies the karma called experiences similar to the cause. And the next step, whom can I turn to? I rely upon the doctor, Buddha, whose methods we're using. He doesn't do the work, we do the work. So that's refuge. And then the second part of that step is the compassion. So then you think, now if others I regret for their sake now. The first one is for yourself. Because I know they don't want suffering, so I must purify for their sake. So this compassion purifies environmental karma with bad things happening. Third one, during the practice, the remedy, that purifies the suffering rebirths. The fourth one, the decision not to kill again, guess what? Purifies the tendency to keep killing. Vowing not to lie again purifies the tendency to lie. Vowing not to jump on the wrong partner and steal someone else's partner purifies the tendency to keep doing it. So the experience similar to the cause, environmental result, lower realms, and tendency, all purified. Do you understand? It's all in the close notes that you have read of mine probably the last 30 years, but it hasn't sort of dropped. The penny hasn't dropped, right? Or have you heard this before, haven't you? You have.
I've read it before, but you said it slightly differently.
It's true. I said it more clearly, more simply. It's true.
So
I relate to them more immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the methods are all there. One, stop doing it. And two, get ahead of the game and purify the seeds before they plant. The ones you've already planted to stop them from ripening. Got to do both. Got to do both. You understand? I think it's time to go home. I'm losing my voice. Any more questions? Nothing? No more? Good enough? Power's got her practice laid out. Alison knows what she's doing. Eileen's on the case. Sunny's all right. I'm not sure about Sunny. She may decide to be a monastic, who knows? And Sheila's a bit clear about purification. Well, I'm very happy. So something has been achieved today. Okay, people? And I hope there's something useful, because I've learned a few things today as well. Thank you very much. Chanchub Semcho, Rinpoche, Ma ke panam ke guchi ke panyampa me payang, gong ne gondu pabasho. Maybe do that prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come back quickly, please. Sunny, is it coming?
Lama Zopa's?
Sunny, is it coming?
Okay.
So as a prayer by His Holiness Dalai Lama for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come back quickly. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's teachings, precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience and is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single positively for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the soul gateways through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and to other living beings, you suddenly depart to peace. Such a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of three jewels and the great waves of body teacher, the children of the victorious ones, and the smile, may the smile of the reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Goodbye. Next time. Okay. Thank you, people. Thank you, thank you. Food for thought, I hope. If you remember any of it, even 1% is better than nothing. Okay, goodbye. I'm closing my lid. Goodbye.